Hello, everybody, and welcome to the FoodTaku podcast. My name is Emily, and I'm here with my illustrious co-host, Paul. Paul, say hi.
Hi, guys. How's it going? Welcome to episode 1. Excited to have everybody.
Yay! We're here today because we love anime food. We happen to be a little bit of an expert at it, both of us, in our unique fields. And we want to talk to you today all about what makes anime food so gosh dang sexy. You know what I'm saying?
Everybody should know this. I think it has the same precedence and same importance as actual fan service. Do you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. When you see food in anime, it's like I'm pretty sure I've read academic studies about types of fan service that exist, and like food is one of them. This was back in my academic days when I was really interested in food and anime and all that kind of thing. It's like a proven scientific fact that it can just, really turn people on.
I think it has a lot to do with just you have to make it so visually appealing because you can't actually eat it. So that's kind of right. So like when I watch, I guess we'll just get right into it, right? We'll talk about like anime fan service in this case. There's actually a really great video that I recently watched. I can't remember the creator's name. He was a smaller creator. He had this video all about fan service. Mm-hmm. And it was like legitimately about the effects of fan service on anime. And it was all about how most fan service came about because of like shonen and it caters to younger boys and this and that and the other thing. And he brought up stuff like Kill la Kill, and he brought up stuff like Food Wars, which is going to be a big topic, I think, for this conversation. But then he brought up stuff like Fire Force, where the fan service doesn't make sense. Yeah. But in this case, I think that when you have food in anime, they have to make that whole thing look good, because there was this incident, I don't know what anime it was from, where like the cabbage looked like a square or something. It was some anime. So if anybody is listening to this and you can comment or whatever down below, let us know. I don't remember which one it was from. But I think ever since that point, they're like, no, we have to go all in, because you have places like, or studios like Studio Ghibli, right, who do these insane like scenes.
So good.
But we look at that stuff and we think, that looks amazing, but as people who eat out often, or who have been in kitchens or whatever, like we can kind of know what that tastes like in a way. Yeah. Right? Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, there's like an experience to it in a way that like an upskirt shot is like very like cheap, right? But when you see, for example, freshly washed cherry tomatoes with a little bit of like dew glistening on them, being struck by the morning light, it is something that is super evocative of a time and a place and a feeling, and you can almost feel that cherry tomato in your mouth bursting, and sort of like the sunshiny acid flavors enliven your body, and you feel like a new person.
This is getting very Food Wars all of a sudden.
Yeah,
you're just having a Food Wars moment after a cherry tomato, but I get it, right?
Like the tomatoes are good in Japan, okay?
I'm kind of jealous because like I live in the Northwest and we do get good produce and stuff, but like my neighbor, she has an awesome herb garden and she always invites me over, and one day she had a bunch of cherry tomatoes. She needed to get rid of them because they were just too many. Yeah. And I was like, okay, let me go get a container. She's like, no. She like made me hold out my shirt, right? And she just kept dumping tomatoes in it. And I ate those things because like just raw, because they tasted like candy. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So like straight up sweet, delicious, like super juicy. But when you see it in an anime, you can't experience the taste of it. Yeah. So you have to make it look so appealing, right, that it becomes fan service. Yeah. And I think that's what we should call it. Anime food is fan service.
Yeah. No, and it truly, truly is. And I think about that too, of like what makes food so good looking to us, because it's not just like, I'm thinking about Your Name, and you've seen Your Name, right? And there's this scene where she is in his body and she is in Tokyo eating a stack of pancakes, and she's like, or like waffles or something. She's taking a picture of them, and like pancakes are objectively good. Well, actually, I don't think so personally.
I do like pancakes. I will admit, I care for waffles more.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Oh my God.
So we're on that, right?
Finally, someone who agrees with me. Everyone thinks I'm a psycho because I don't love pancakes, but waffles are objectively
I would have
better.
a plate of waffles over pancakes, but I do agree. Pancakes are great.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, so she's taking this picture of pancakes, and there's something about it that's just so visually appealing, and I think it's like a little bit of the atmosphere, like where they are in the middle of the city in this amazing restaurant, you having this like incredible kind of like fine dining pancake experience. But there's also something of just the way that they draw it that really like brings life to the food in a way that doesn't always exist in real life. Like I feel like this is the constant struggle of home chefs. They can make food, but making it look good is a whole different thing. It's a different ball
a whole
game.
different level. Yeah. But also in that same regard, is it that important for a home chef to make it look that good? Right. Like unless you're really like trying to do a dinner party or something, for me, food goes into a bowl and I eat it. Right. Like that's just how I eat at home most of the time. I don't need it to look good. I need it to function. Right?
I think yes and no. Yes and no. As someone who has really struggled with making food. Okay, this is kind of crazy considering that I cook a lot, but I don't cook for myself. I don't make single meals for myself, or I didn't usually in the past. And I think it was because it was not only more convenient to just order on Uber Eats, but when the food would come, it would just look nice and it looks good and tempting and you want to dig into it. Versus when I make something at home, like it doesn't have the same je ne sais quoi. You know what I'm saying?
No,
and
totally.
It's only,
and it's that, you eat with your eyes first.
Yeah, and recently I have started to force myself to cook at home more often because I need to get in the habit. And I found that adding those little touches, like a little bit of green onion on top or a little bit of sesame seed or like whatever, really makes a difference. And it makes me appreciate the food that I'm eating more. And it makes me have like more pride in what I'm cooking and how I'm consuming it. So I kind of like appearance. I think it does make even like a little bit of a difference, even if you're doing it at home.
I 100% agree, but like for me, food in a lot of ways has become utility for when I feed myself, which is really sad to say because I'm like, nope, I want to get some chicken. I want to go get a bagel, put some cream cheese on it. Like I'm good. Right. That's literally, that was breakfast this morning. It was a bagel with cream cheese and like a seared chicken breast. Cause I was like, I don't care. I just need some food. But if I'm making food for someone, I'm not going to give them a cinnamon bagel with cream cheese and a chicken breast for breakfast, right? Like
you wouldn't serve that to someone?
No, I wouldn't serve that to anyone. I eat that for myself. You know, I'll enjoy it in the closet where no one can watch. But
see your shame in action.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like don't touch it. You don't want any part of this. But I think what's interesting about seeing it like animated is you're only eating with your eyes, right? And that's just because that's what it is. So like you said, like Your Name, right? With like the pancake scene, in that same, I think it was it Weathering with You that had the potato chip fried rice? I think it was, but it's the same studio.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Like that whole, like them cracking the egg and to where like the egg looks like it was like christened by God, the way it came out of the shell.
Oh, I remember you posting about this. And you're right. You're right.
I made it because it looked so visually appealing.
Yeah.
And it was delicious. I loved it. Potato chip fried rice is fantastic. And I think everyone should make fried rice and throw like salt and vinegar chips into it and just like change the game, right?
Make
like open
crunchy.
up a restaurant or make it a food cart, you know, chips in your fried rice, get Uncle Roger all aggro. But it's like with that to me keeps something that should be mundane, like within an anime, like a scene that should be mundane of just like eating dinner into this like beautifully animated thing. Because I mean, I see it as, if you saw that scene, would it have been as impactful if it were just like a cardboard looking cutout of some food? Probably not. Yeah. Right. I think that's kind of the why like anime food is fan service.
Yeah. And this is just me kind of being like a nerd about it, but I wonder if it really helps to contribute to like characterization in a sense, you know, if you're looking at a character who is looking at this food and like working with it and kind of Worshipping it with their hands,
Oh,
as we
yes.
do in the kitchen when we handle all our ingredients. It kind of gives you like a different impression of the character as well, and like what they appreciate and what they value, and
Right.
as opposed to maybe like a scene of someone like a shut-in who's just like having, another Domino's pizza or whatever.
Yeah, instant ramen or something like
yeah,
that. Yeah. That does make sense, because when you really see those scenes where you have the kind of, I think the term is neats, right? Like the shut-ins or something, and they just see like stacks of food everywhere.
What is it?
That
Hikikomori? Or
right?
something like that?
Is it I don't know the term, but I know. Is it
Hikikimori?
Kikimori? I don't know. I'm
Something,
gonna
something
butcher
like
that.
that. Something like
Yes,
that.
but it's basically
Someone in
like,
the comments, please let us know.
right, let us know. But I think it's Hikikimori. Oh my god, Hikikimori. I'm not even gonna try. Anyways, but when you see those scenes, and they do happen often, and one of them is one of my favorite like degenerate shows is No Game No Life. Right.
Yeah.
I love that show, but there are scenes where like the Shido and, oh my god, I can't remember the brother's name. Anyways, the siblings.
Brother, yeah.
Yeah, they're in their room and they just have like boxes of food everywhere, because to them it's not
just
important. It's just fuel.
Yeah.
But then you have, like you said, like we'll talk about like the Food Wars comparison, where the characters are their food.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
you had just said. And I thought that was super interesting, because each character in Food Wars is also represented by the food that they make.
It's so true. Like, if you think about it, like Meat Girl, what's her name?
Oh, Nikumi. Or technically Ikumi.
Yeah,
but everybody
but
calls her
it's
Nikumi.
Nikumi.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
my god. Okay, this is something you'll learn about me. I'm really bad at names, but I can describe every character to you perfectly. But yeah, Nikumi. I mean, her depiction, her characterization, she like always wears like an American flag bra, right? Or something like that. Like bikini top kind of situation. And in a lot of ways, like she is the embodiment, like visually, of meat and like meat culture, and like strong, manly meat. Which I can get behind.
It is kind of accurate to her character, though. But like when I think about that character and just kind of the way they portrayed her in the first season, for anyone who's watched it, they portrayed her as a character who was very brash and very like forceful with everything, right? Because she's also a butcher. So it's like she can handle like, taking a whole cow and breaking it down, whatever it was. So it was kind of that character for her. And then when she would make dishes, the dishes were also like meat heavy, right? They made it to where it really represented the character. And this is, I could go into Food Wars all day because I've watched it so much now. But when you talk about like Yukihira, right? A lot of his dishes, like his personality, are very playful.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Where they're more of like experimenting, trying new things, whatever it might be. And then you have Erina on the other side, where at the beginning anyways, she wasn't very playful, and she was just, nope, this is how it has to be. This is to the T. It's Michelin or bust.
Yeah. Her style does change a lot as the seasons go on, and as she and Yuki become more and more like infatuated with one another, right?
Yep. I kind of wish they didn't ruin season 5. I'm just throwing that out there.
Oh, that's a well, is it a controversial opinion?
No, season 5 is hot garbage.
Yeah, it is.
It's like on fire the whole time.
It is. I would say
It's
seasons
so
1 through
bad.
3 are okay, and then from 4
even
on,
season 4 was a tournament arc. That was fun.
It was okay.
But season 5, they're like cooking filet mignon in metal juggling balls. I think the food took a backseat to all. Anyways, but yes, I don't. Season 5 we'll just not talk about.
I agree with you, and I wonder if it follows with. I think they were following the manga pretty closely, but I wonder if
that's how the manga was written.
Yeah, choices.
Which is, they should have just said, "Sorry, bro, we're not doing this. We're just gonna animate something different," and it probably would have been better. Is the consensus? But even in a show like that, where it's very food forward, lost its meaning in season 5, so it was kind of sad to see that.
To see it go.
It was just kind of a plot point at that point.
Yeah. There's some weird dishes in that season for sure.
She used dynamite to cook puff pastry. You can't do that.
You can't do it. Oh, okay. Well, speaking of unsexy food, so moving away from like, I think Soma and Erina and everyone are very good visual depictions of their characters or of their like food and their cooking style a little bit. But then Getting into some like unsexy versions of food, I think of Yakitate Japan. Have you seen that show?
I haven't yet, no, and everybody wants me to watch it.
Okay, there are some very good looking foods in it, and it's all focused on like pastry and baking and bread and that kind of thing.
Okay.
But there is one recipe that I could never, like, they tried so hard to make this a sexy thing, and I couldn't understand it. And it's like the 700 layer croissant. There's one episode
Okay.
where he makes a croissant that's got like a bajillion, like 1,000 layer croissant, something ridiculous like that. And if you guys, for anyone who hasn't seen the show or doesn't know how croissants are made, you make this layered or laminated dough and you fold it over, and in folding you create like more and more and more layers of pastry, right? And so he just keeps folding. He's like, he's like, why would we stop at 3 or 4 turns? Like, let's just keep going and do more. And in real life, the reason you can't do that is because the lamination breaks and the butter in between the pastry kind of seeps out and starts like melting. It's just difficult to do. But this guy, he's like, I'm going to do it. We're going to make this happen. So he makes this like 1,000 layer croissant or whatever, and he bakes it. But because there are so many layers, it like has to, I don't know, takes longer to cook. He's got to like burn it basically. So he puts it in the oven. He leaves it in there. The outside becomes all like burned and horrific. And then he takes it out in the big reveal. He like cracks it open. He cracks the top open to reveal this like luscious and perfect croissant underneath. But I watched that episode and I was like, what is this man thinking? Like, so, everyone knows that when you burn something, you can't get the taste off.
You can't get the taste off, right? So like I watched, actually, I think Binging with Babish / Anime with Alvin made that in the past couple of months, where they remade like the 1,000 layer croissant or something like that.
Yeah.
And they overcooked it, tried to burn it, and I think they had to like remake it. So they showed, they're like, no, we're gonna make a different one, because you're right. Like when you burn bread,
you can't bounce back.
The flavor is there. Right. Yeah. You would essentially,
the carcinogens are in.
They're
the
in,
bread.
Right? Like if you burn, like, let's say like a shokupan, right? Like a rectangular loaf of bread. If you burnt the outside, right? Yeah. You could kind of like, you could literally cut away all of it and save the inside and use that for breadcrumbs or whatever. Yeah. But I'm like, if you burn anything like that, it just goes to waste. You literally can't use it.
You can't use it. And with a croissant, which is all like layery and wrinkly and full of holes and divots, he literally takes a spoon, if I remember right, and he cracks it, the shell off, and it just like chips off and flakes off. And I'm like, okay, well, all those flakes are now just like getting in the crevasses of this croissant. And I was like, this does not seem good.
No, right. And as someone who's like, I worked in a bakery for about a year and a half, and we did sourdough from scratch, like German style, like hearty sourdough. We did croissants, we did puff pastries, we did all that stuff. Yeah. If you burnt a croissant, you pretty much just threw it away. Like there was no salvaging it, right? Yeah. And that has a lot to do with, like you said, where if the dough burns on the outside, you can't just like pick it off, especially puff pastry, because if you go to like peel it, the whole damn thing just gets removed, right? Yeah. Like that's just the whole thing of bread comes with it. And so when I see stuff like that in anime, it's more of the wow factor, right? Yeah. Of you made 1,000 layer croissant.
I can't believe you did that. Yeah.
Right. And it becomes more of like a plot point versus the appreciation of the food in a way. Yeah. And like, yes, maybe the characters love it or whatever, but when I think of food scenes, I think of, God, this is a comparison that I didn't want to bring up, but it was like it's Your Lie in April, right? Because like so that anime just like crushes you, right?
Wait a second, you so much as utter those words in my presence.
I know, right? But there's this scene where Saori and the guy, right? I can't remember.
I think her name is Cow. Is it Cowdy?
Is it Cowdy? The girl. Okay, so whatever. I'm so bad at names, right?
Tell us in the comments below.
Right. So the blonde girl and the guy with the glasses and the dark hair. Those two.
The violinist and the pianist.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. But they're at a restaurant, like a lunch place or something, and they ordered like, I think it was waffles, and it was just like this beautiful plate of waffles, and it wasn't even like they looked good. They were drawn really well. It was animated well, but it was more of the exchange of the characters like over that plate of food, right? That made it important. And that's like, that's where you see like, okay, the food is important as a storytelling element instead of just being this like huge main character. Right.
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 Like a show stopping kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. Cause even in Food Wars, like the food is its own character. In Yakutaka Japan, it sounds like the food is its own character.
Very much.
Right.
Yeah.
But like, how do you think is the best way to showcase it? Is it like the beautifully animated stuff, like maybe a Ghibli scene, or is it what like these over the top things animes do with food? What do you think?
Well, I think that's an excellent question, and I think it's one that's kind of hard to answer because, in a sense, I love the beautifully animated stuff. I think that there is so much artistry and creativity in food, and I really invite people to kind of explore that. And I think that those beautiful animations help to convey that to people. Like, it is a wonderful thing. It's a precious resource that we have. There's so much variety in life, and there's so many opportunities to try and make and create, and that should be. And it is such a central part of life too, eating and sharing things with people. And I think for me, it's a big kind of like community thing. Like, I love cooking for people, and so I think those beautiful animations, help to remind people of just the joy of food and of eating and how wonderful it is. On the other hand, I do think it sets unrealistic expectations. I have suffered from this a lot. When you see something in an anime and you're like, oh, I have to make that, and then you make it. And for me, it's not even almost about the food. Especially when I was first starting out, I realized if you don't have the right lighting, if you don't have the right camera, if you don't have the right like equipment to take a picture of it, it's not going to look the way that you want it to look necessarily. If you're, for me, in my case, posting it online, if you're in person, it kind of depends on the situation that you're in. You'll see it, but then the rest of your kitchen is an absolute disaster for making it. And you're like,
that's why kitchens are usually behind closed doors.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, well, it looks nice, but like knowing that you have to clean it up, is it worth the effort?
Yep. I've gone through that.
Yeah. 100%. So I like the animated aspect. On the other hand, when you have food as a central character and it's kind of like driving a plot, or it is the reason, like for a shokugeki or something, I really like those plot points because often it focuses more on technique and how something is created. And I think that there's a lot to learn from that, even if it's a little bit bogus. Like with the croissant thing, you look at that and maybe it's our own curse of knowledge that we know how croissants are made and what goes into them, where I'm like, oh, I'm not bamboozled by your tricks, Mr. Yakitate Japan man.
Yeah, and I will say on that note, like I have seen so many comments about stuff like that. It's like, oh, well, the character did it this way. I'm like, but that doesn't actually work in real life half the time. And it's when you try to translate anime food. So this is something that I wanted to bring up with you as well, since you are in Japan. When you try to remake anime food, you can't translate it most of the time, right? I would say most of the time. You can't translate it exactly, like one to one. Hold on one sec. My cat's going crazy. We're gonna pause for a second.
I thought it was a ghost. I was like, we're haunted. We're haunted. There's a ghost. Wait, can you show us the cat? Meow meow. Meow meow. I'm calling the cat to me. Oh, I'm okay. I got someone off camera who's offering me a beverage.
I'm back.
Kitty, did you put the cat away?
I exiled him. He's just going crazy. I think he pooped, right?
Oh no!
He's just like, I'm free of this demon.
I'm free. I've been ridded.
Okay,
oh my
but
God.
I kept my thought.
Yeah. Okay, carry on.
Okay, so we'll start up from there. But so you being in Japan have kind of a unique take where you can try some of the things that are remade, right? So like they have pop-up cafes, which is really interesting. What is your take on that? Because I know that they're super commercialized. It's just there for show, it feels like, from what I've seen. The only experience I have with it was when they did a Demon Slayer pop-up. And you could probably speak on this, right? But I had Afro in Japan, Jordan. I had messaged him and asked him to go buy the Demon Slayer pizza that was at Domino's or something. and he reviewed it for me, and it was like $40 for a pizza.
Yeah.
I'm going to go open up a pizza shop in Japan. That just seems like the move, right? That's like a power move right
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
He said it was $40 and he was like, it was okay. And when I remade it, I was like, okay, it's still really good, but I had to do my own interpretation of it. But like the average fan won't go through 8 hours of prep to make a pizza. So in this case, like what is your, like, how do you see it out there? Have you gone to any of these things?
Yeah. What do I look like, a scrub to you? Of course I've gone to these things. Okay, I have a couple of thoughts about this. So I kind of think of anime cafes in the same way that I think about food at Disneyland. Are you super familiar with Disneyland?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's very sad to hear.
Yeah, they offer, well, okay. Difference between Disneyland in America and Disneyland in Japan. So let's start with that. So in Japan, the food at Disneyland is amazing. Incredible. Show-stopping, legit a reason to go to a park. Oh, yeah. I could
I'm so
go
sad
on
now.
and on about this.
Okay.
America ain't got nothing. You ain't been to a Disneyland until you've been to Tokyo Disneyland or Tokyo Disney Sea.
Well, now I really want to go.
Yeah, I'm going this weekend. Dude, we'll go when you come here because it is so worth it. It's so, the food is just really, really good. I would say that everyone is, the service is great. Everyone's kind and friendly and welcoming and whatever. But in Disneyland, both Disneyland and Disney Sea here, there's like levels of food experiences that you can have. And like there's some very basic, like I'm buying it out of a cart in front of a ride or something like that. There's kind of like dining hall situations where you go in and you kind of have like 3 choices on the menu, all of which are usually really, really good. But you order them and then they prep up for you and you take your tray and go sit down. And then there's more restaurant-based experiences where you sit down, you order from a menu. Usually they have a set menu, but they bring out kind of a really nicely crafted menu, something that is tailored and specific to a theme or an idea. And then you have fine dining, like expensive $300 a head dining experiences
at Disneyland. Where you're already paying like $150 to get in.
No, this is the iconic and amazing thing about Disneyland here. Tickets are retail for 8,900 yen, which with the conversion rate right now is around $55.
Oh my God. I'm going to go to the bank, go to an exchange place and just like start changing out for yen for when I come visit.
Yeah. 100%. I would if I were you. I doubt it's going to fall that fast. I doubt the yen is going to get more expensive. Probably we have to wait until the end of 2023. I would expect to see it change. But don't take my financial advice.
Oh no, I'm terrible at it. So I would have no idea. Yeah.
But it's super, super cheap right now. I've got a friend that I was just hanging out with last night who was like, everything is so cheap here. She went to Disneyland, had a great time. The tickets to Disneyland are cheap. The food is cheap. I have had some amazing meals at Disneyland for like $8.
Oh God, I was gonna curse so loud. I'm like, no, keep it in. Yeah. $8?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Do you know what you get?
Word of a lie.
Well, have you been to Disney here in California?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, not that I'm in California. It's expensive, right? It's like $140 to get in.
Yeah.
And then like a turkey leg, which is good. It's like my favorite thing, is like $15 or $16 now.
Yeah.
For a single turkey leg.
It's not.
But everything else is mediocre for the most part because it's park food. You're getting gouged. Like they try to make a decent product, but you can only do so much when you're feeding tens of thousands of people. Right?
Yeah.
God, it makes me sad. Now I really want to go. We're going to go to Tokyo Disney.
Should go.
That's going to be a thing.
It's a different standard here.
Okay,
and so good.
So the question initially was like the anime cafes, but you started comparing it to Disney.
Yeah.
So are they on that level then?
I would say where in Disneyland you can get a variety of experiences. Like if you want to pay $300 a head for a beautiful sort of Disney themed meal that is exquisite, high cuisine, you can get it. I would say with anime cafes, you don't have that same range usually. Usually the quality of food that you find is more akin to what you would get at like a dining hall in Disney, which is still usually good, but nothing that like dramatically wows you. Anime cafes here tend to focus more on the visual appeal rather than the actual like good or interesting or unique flavor of something.
Gotcha.
So, for example, like, because they know that when people go, they're going to take a picture of what they have ordered.
Yeah, put it on Instagram or something.
They want their branding to be all over that plate so that people automatically make the connection. So we were just at the Sailor Moon Museum last night. They had a cafe there, which I didn't go to because the food didn't look super great to me.
But that's the whole point, is go try the crappy plate. You're right.
The line was super long. It didn't look good, and they had stuff there that I wouldn't have enjoyed eating. But like they had 2 little sliders that were not filled with what you would expect a slider to be filled with, but was filled with like boring stuff. And they literally just branded the buns with like
so they just stamped the Sailor Moon like logo or whatever on it.
And it looks really cool, right?
Yeah.
But for me as a food creator and like content creator, it's really disappointing because I'm like, I can't go to this cafe and recreate the food because it's literally impossible. You can't. I can't make a brand at home to do it.
You're not going to go make it branded. Yeah, that's. And also, it doesn't really add to the food. That's just. You're just burning the bun with like a hot plate, basically.
Exactly. So it's focused more on that like commodification of the food, of like how can we make it visually attractive and appealing to people. And I would say the food can be a hit or a miss. Sometimes it's a really, really good sandwich that you're eating. Sometimes it is not, and it just is sort of boring, kind of falls flat. But people go to anime cafes here, I would say like food is almost secondary to everything else you get at an anime cafe, which is all of the goods and the merch. So you can buy merch there if you order, for example, like the cafe that we were near yesterday, the Sailor Moon Cafe, it had like 7 different colored drinks, and you could pick a drink to order and they would bring you a coaster emblazoned with the character or
so that's your
whatever.
little like takeaway.
Yeah, so people go not for the food but to collect these like coasters, or maybe there's like little like proppy things that come with the food or whatever. And that's a principal like benefit of going to these kind of food cafe situations. So I've been to a couple and I haven't really been impressed by the food at any of them, which is disappointing to me because like when I think about the food from anime that I really, really want to try, like I really want to try the food from Food Wars. I would love to have like a professional chef make that for me, because having made it myself every single time, it is almost never worth the effort that it takes to create it.
Yeah, especially like as a one-off thing versus making a bunch of it or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So I would want to go to an anime cafe that is really emphasizing the quality of the food and is making like a fine dining experience. But those, I would say, if they exist, are very, very far and few between. Which, have you seen this guy? There's this guy that I follow on Twitter. His brand is like Pixelated Food, Geek Food, Gluttonous Geek.
I've seen. There's one pixelated
Pixel
thing
to Plate. Pixel to Plate is what his.
I don't think I've seen him. No.
Oh, okay. It's this guy. I think he's based in New York, and he does these dinners that are called Pixel to Plate, where they, you can buy a ticket to this event, I guess, and you go, and each event is themed to like Pokemon or, whatever, Animal Crossing, whatever. And they have like a 5-course meal, and each course is based off of a food that you see in the game or in the anime or whatever.
I like that a lot. But
yes,
it's also his interpretation, right?
His interpretation, in the sense that all they have to go off of is the visual look of something,
right.
And they're limited by ingredients and that kind of thing. But I mean, based on the menus that he's posted online and like the drink menus and stuff like that, it looks so good and so legit.
Pixel to Plate. I'm gonna have to look that up because it sounds, when I hear stuff like that, right, it sounds like a professional who's really trying to bring to life these things, but then on a very different level, not just do it for video or for YouTube, but actually like feed it to people. And I think it's because as like anime fans, you see this stuff and it's like it ends up being more of a connection with that show or character or that scene that you want to like relive, right? A perfect example is today I spent an hour and a half literally trying to find the perfect Lucy mod for Cyberpunk 2077. Okay. Cause I'm so enamored with the anime that I wanted to like relive the character in a different setting in a world and like finally figured out whatever it was. And it's like, that's what I think like Pixel to Plate sounds like they're trying to do, right? Like trying to allow a fan to relive these moments, and obviously very Instagrammable, whatever it might be, but hopefully it tastes really good too. That's why it's, when you're talking about like some of the cafes out there that are just kind of there to be just the Instagram moments versus enjoying a good bite of food. Right. That sounds like such a miss, but I guess from the business side of it, how do you make that sustainable? Right. Because a lot of those cafes, I'm assuming, are pop-ups.
There's dedicated spaces for these like event cafes. So like in Shibuya, there's at least 2 that I can think of. And it's just like a shop that you can kind of just like, the staff can come in, do what they need to do, and then they leave.
Gotcha.
The next staff comes in and whatever. So they have like these events there all the time in these cafes. But not really like a physical in-person shop. The only thing I can think of is the Gundam Cafe, which is gone now because rip Gundam Cafe and
R.I.P.
COVID.
Gundam.
And I don't know, there might be like a Doraemon Cafe, or not even that, and that's like incredibly popular here. So yeah, I think you're right. Like it's just not sustainable.
But also, as popular as anime is, right? Like I was doing some research for another presentation I have to do, and in 2021, which is a weird year, but I'll still take the win. Like anime as a whole for the industry produced like $25 billion in revenue. Hollywood produced 21 billion. So technically anime made more money than Hollywood, right? And it was 2021. I get it. Like people are not going to the movie theater, whatever. But even if it's that popular, can a business sustain itself on like a full on anime menu if it's catering to anime fans? Like even if you're like in LA, right? Or whatever, or New York, I don't think it's possible because the average person cafe. But if you tout yourself as maybe like just a Japanese inspired place or whatever it was, and then you sneak in like gotcha pork roast, like appetizers or something, right? You could totally do that and get away with it. Whereas if you cater to just the anime fan, it's a really hard sell.
It's
too much of an ask. Even like outside of conventions, I think it's a miss because the average person, to me, doesn't connect those like Weathering with You
together.
Anime, you know, like those memories of that show, or, you know, Your Lie in April or whatever, to like the potato chip fried rice. But if you have a food truck and you have potato chip fried rice on the menu that's inspired by the show, you don't have to tell anybody, right? It could be delicious and people will buy it. But you're not catering to that audience, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, and that's why something like this guy's kind of brand of pixel to plate makes a lot of sense to me, because there's a lot you can do with that. And like pixels, I think, can mean really anything. Video games, anime, other cartoons. It can mean like, you know, technically anything that's made up of pixels, which is like everything these days. And so that broadness there invites people to come and kind of explore in a way it's like ambiguous, like pixels, like, oh, you know, like what do we mean by that generally? I don't know. But if you're kind of a nerd or into geek culture or anything like that, that could apply to many different fandoms as opposed to just the genre of anime.
No, totally.
You know, specifically.
But his business model sounds like you have to like order ahead of time, you know, you have to make reservations ahead of time. So, and it's still more of an event. So the people who are going there are familiar with that medium versus him just having a restaurant, you know, in downtown New York somewhere.
Oh, okay. So what about this? What if instead of, you know how there's like fusion restaurants, like Tex-Mex or like Japanese American fusion or whatever. What if you did like, pop culture fusion food or something like that? And your restaurant was just dedicated to doing, you know, mixes of stuff that you see in shows and TV or whatever, but also your take on it, your spin or whatever.
But I think that would still, I think that would still fall, like if you had a dedicated restaurant, I think you're still better off doing those as kind of the Easter eggs for people who know versus actually putting it on the menu as like the Breaking Bad, I don't know, chemistry cocktail, whatever it is, right? People are going to see it and be like, but if you just call it the Breaking Bad on your menu and it's just a really cool looking cocktail that's maybe comes out and it's, you know, it's really white and sussy looking, then people will be like, oh, that's funny. Like it's It's a cocktail
Yeah.
based, but then the
Yeah.
average person could see it who's never seen Breaking Bad and just
Yeah.
order a good cocktail. I think that's
Right.
kind of the struggle. Like we see all the really cool like anime food that looks gorgeous and whatever, but feeding it to people and recreating it is the hardest part of it, right?
Yeah.
Like it can be animated to the nines, right? And just be absolutely decked out. They put their whole budget behind it, but you only have a visual representation of it. You have no
Yeah,
way of
yeah, yeah.
eating it. And so
Yeah.
what would be your first thought of like, how do you bring that to the people? Right. Cause I think that's what we've both tried to do in the past.
Yeah.
And I'm personally trying to do that, like push the idea more with future projects. But like, what would you think would be like the best course of action to like let people who enjoy the anime food, whether or not they're in the US or Japan, to like actually get after it?
Well, I mean, honestly, the whole reason that I started my channel with food tutorial content was for this reason, right? Like I wanted people to be able to experience it. And the easiest way is just to teach people how to make it for themselves so
Right.
that they can try it out. But of course, you know, people can't or don't want to for whatever reason, which is very understandable. I have washed too many pots in my time. And so I did this thing, you know, I actually put on a dinner when I was living in Sacramento. I sold tickets to this event. I had like a staff working with me, and we put out a 5-course meal for people to experience. And each course was themed after a different, like, really popular anime. Like we had a Pokemon appetizer. We had, oh God, I don't even remember. We had a Sailor Moon dessert, and we had other like various things throughout that kind of evoked a certain anime or a certain feel. And that was probably the closest I ever got to actually like bringing the food to the people. And it was really fun and really successful. But I don't know. I tried for a really long time to do food exhibits at conventions. I remember going to a convention once and I made a bunch of cookies to hand out to people to like share the wealth, because like who doesn't love a free cookie, right? But it is challenging because with food, there's that extra element of like food safety. You want to make sure that you don't poison people, or kill someone by accident.
Kind of a big deal.
Kind of a big deal. And in order for that to exist, you need to have like a level of stability and a level of like repeatability. And if you don't have those things where you can ensure that you're like setting down a foundation for something, it's never worth it. It's like always you're going to be paying something to get that. But, you know, having talked to you, I think you've got some really excellent ideas moving forward in
They all
kind of
terrify
anime.
me too.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for them, but I'm not daunted by them.
Yeah.
I'm more of I need to find the time to execute them. And so it's that slow snowball effect where like once it gets going, it'll feel very natural to do.
Yeah.
So at Anime Expo, I know you were there this last year, but I don't know if you saw the Genshin Impact food truck. Did you see that?
No.
But it was like on the street, right? So it wasn't like in the main convention area.
Right.
The Genshin Impact pop-up food truck was insane. Like I didn't buy anything from there because the line was like 2 hours long.
Oh, wow.
Right? But the other food trucks were not that busy in comparison, right? Because you have to imagine how many Genshin fans are.
Yeah.
The whole convention was Genshin Impact, basically, right? It was insane. But they knew where their crowd was going to be, and they catered to that crowd.
Yeah.
I think that like we as creators, if we want to actually like feed people like anime food that maybe they're really attached to, we have to go where they are.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Versus them coming to us.
Yeah.
It's a very different dynamic. And like, you're not going to have a huge crowd of people who travel to Portland, Oregon to come to your anime cafe. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But if you do a pop-up at Anime Expo, the crowd's already there.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's your opportunity to introduce people to the stuff they've fallen in love with,
Yeah.
and, you know, let them be a part of it. Because at that Genshin booth, at that pop-up, you would see Genshin cosplayers like going and getting food and then posing with the food, because now they actually have like an item, right?
An item from the show, or from the
from
game,
from the game,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
it's like, that to me is super powerful, and it's like,
Yeah.
that's what I want more and more people to try, but
Yeah.
it's hard to get that to them, you know, because
Yeah.
like you said, you can teach people all day long, but even as, like you said, and I know, cooking for yourself isn't always the most exciting thing. Like, I want to be fed, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
way ready. I'm making burgers tonight because it's easy, right? Making
Yeah.
some smash burgers. It's going to be fine. It's no big deal. But like, tomorrow we're going out again. You know, we try not to go out too often, but since
Yeah.
I'm leaving for a week, I'm like, okay, let's go out tomorrow night. And we just wanted Hainanese rice. Like, it's like the
Yeah.
boiled chicken with the
yeah.
rice and right? It's
So
like
good.
$15 and you get a giant plate of food.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's what I want catered
let
to
someone
me.
else cook for you.
Yeah, let somebody else cook for me, whatever.
Yeah.
You just get fed. So we like trying to do that for anime fans. I think it'd be a lot of fun, but you just have to figure out how to do it, because you want someone to not just see it and be like, oh, that's sexy looking. You want them to be able to eat it, right? Otherwise,
Yeah.
it'd just be like, here's a print
Yeah.
of the food that I made, and just it's the same, right?
For sure.
So
Yeah.
that's where my head has been.
I will say that something that Japan has perfected really well is like getting in and out and doing these things. Like at the museum I was at last night, they had a food truck there that was just serving 2 different Sailor Moon themed drinks and a couple like pre-packaged little cookies or whatever. And I like thinking about it, this food truck, you know, goes all over and just like whips up a new menu depending on where they're at.
Yeah.
And sells to people, and they always pick, like, they had a tapioca drink there, which is like bubble tea is really popular in Japan right now.
Oh yeah.
And like it has been for a while, as it has in America. But
Yeah, I would kill for one right now.
yeah. Dude, same, honestly though. I need a little caffeine in my life. But not coffee. But
Why?
not coffee, because
No,
coffee makes me crazy.
even coffee is animated well. Isekai
Okay.
Nobu? Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
Isekai
okay.
Nobu is a great example of like sexy anime food.
Yeah, yeah.
And the whole show is just about food.
Yeah.
But I would love to see more of those pop-ups happen.
Yeah.
Because there have to be like specialized places, like you said, with this food truck, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
the next time it's like a
That's their
Digimon
business.
event or something.
Exactly,
And they did.
yeah.
Oh, I just had a thought. Like there's
Yeah.
this place that we went to in Scotland, right? Of all places.
Yeah.
We were in Edinburgh, and Edinburgh is like one of my favorite cities I've ever
Oh, yeah.
visited. The culture there is insane. I love everything about it. It's just so much fun.
Yeah.
But we were walking kind of towards Edinburgh Castle, I think it was,
Yep,
right?
yep.
Like the main castle area. We're walking and we see a bar, and we're like, okay, it's 11 a.m. We're on vacation. We'll go to this
Why
bar.
not? Yeah, why
and
not?
we're walking closer to it, and it was a Star Wars themed bar. Okay.
Oh, cool.
And we walk in, and it's like the Death Star is painted on the, on the wall, and they have
Yeah.
all of these cool droids and stuff everywhere. They had cocktails that were, you could do the lightsaber tasting. And so they had like a purple cocktail, a red cocktail, a
Oh,
green
that's so
cocktail.
cool.
Right. And it was, but they used different liqueurs to get that
Yeah.
effect. So it
Yeah,
made
yeah.
sense for the drink. But what was neat about this place is they were a pop-up. So they're a company that like every 30 days they change their entire place and they go to a different location.
Yeah.
And so that month it was Star Wars. The
Yeah.
next month they were doing The Witcher. And it's like they constantly would change. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's such a fun idea.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Like I would love to just have like a pop-up food truck that changes every now and then.
Yeah,
Like
no,
change the menu.
It's super. I think it's a good idea too, and it's I think another way to get around this issue of like bringing the food to the people. Just swapping out your theme every once in a while and bringing in new customers helps to keep. It lets you focus in on that aspect of anime or the TV show or like whatever it is that you were really interested in, while still bringing people to your door and keeping it fresh because you're changing it out, keeping it rotated in a sense.
So speaking of menus, right? What item from an anime would you try to feed people in mass, right? You have to
Yeah.
imagine like you're at Anime
En
Expo or
masse.
something.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
What would
Okay.
you put on your food truck menu?
Okay, that's a great question, and I was going to ask you, like, speaking of, like,
no.
sexy
Okay.
sexy anime food, like, what do you
Yes.
think is the sexiest food, hand down? And I think my answer for both of these questions is the same, and it will be the Chaliapin steak don from Food Wars.
Yep. 100%.
I have a lot of reasons behind this. First of all, it's sexy because to me, steak, meat, beef with a nice juicy red center and that nice crusty outside it just does something to me. I love beef. And I love I love
how excited you got. You're like, oh my God, feed me.
It's so good. And this is the
you're
one
gonna
dish.
You're gonna go get a beef rice bowl after this, aren't you?
Girl, I have
100%.
some steak in my freezer. I'm already thinking about defrosting. All I need is an onion, some red wine. I have that. Okay. So I think that this dish is so iconic because it is beautiful. You know, you get those gorgeous golden onions on top. You've got that red wine reduction. You've got the steak. And then the rice itself, what I love about the rice is that it's cut with the umeboshi. So it's got that nice little sour tang to it, which balances out the richness of the beef and of the kind of like juiciness of the onions and that all that kind of situation. So I think it's a technically well-constructed dish. Like all the elements are there. It's really, really good and fulfilling, and it's just sexy. And for a food truck, I think that that's like very doable, right? Like,
oh yeah,
you can
absolutely.
prep all those ingredients separately. It's easy to go. The only real cooking that you're doing on the day of is maybe like firing up the steaks or whatever. But you can have everything else prepped, and it makes for really easy assembly, and it's super satisfying. Like at its core, like a steak bowl is a very common Japanese like comfort food. People love it. Who doesn't love like rice with steak, right? And so it satisfies, like if you're at a convention, it satisfies that like I'm hungry and I want like something kind of junk foody feeling, but you can also really easily make it high end. And I think
absolutely.
that would be, and it's such an iconic dish. I think it would be such a winner on any food truck that was trying to cater to the anime loving people, you know?
I wholeheartedly agree, because that would probably be one of the things I put on my menu too. So you said you had another one though. What was that second one?
Oh, second dish? No,
Yeah.
that dish for both categories of sexiest food and
okay,
and
okay,
like
cool.
would
Okay,
work on a food truck.
I like that.
I mean, I can come up with more if you want.
No, because I have. So I was gonna say the Charlie and Bean steak. So because I agree, right? You could have it as a bowl, and it's just like you just hand somebody this one thing. All they need is chopsticks or a spoon or whatever they want to use to eat it.
Yeah,
and they're done, right? No muss, no fuss. They can enjoy it.
Right.
I was thinking of, honestly, it's two things, but I think of my brain kind of sometimes goes too much into like the chef direction, and so my thought were like the bites, right? The bite-sized stuff at a convention. How do you get somebody to enjoy multiple bites of the same food, right? That's like made the same way. This is going to make more sense when I say it. It's like mini gotcha pork roasts, right? So they're it's like a single strip of bacon, you know, with like the mashed potatoes inside, and literally maybe it's on a skewer, right? Like you could do something fun with it, but then you get three of them.
You
and
could
then
do like
maybe
a
one of them
situation.
Right. And so like maybe one of them has sauce on it, maybe one of them has some minced onion, maybe the other one has like a cream based sauce to go with the bacon, or like gravy, just throw straight up gravy on it. The other one that I thought of was, of course this is still Food Wars, but I actually have three. So the second one would be a Food Wars karaage, right? Or a karaage. I always never pronounce it right. Karaage. Okay. But the way Yukihira did it in the Vietnamese, I think it's a Vietnamese pancake, the xiao. I'm not going to pronounce it right, but it's a thin like Vietnamese style pancake they stuff the karaage with, right? And it's a pretty big portion.
Yes.
Right. And I had hashed this out with another friend of mine who also does a lot of video game food, right? His name is Andy, and he has a show on Twitch. It's great. But I was like, I want to do that, but I want to do savory waffle cones, right? Like on a little serving tray. And then each waffle cone has like one giant piece of karaage.
Yeah.
And then each piece of karaage is tossed in like a different sauce.
Yeah.
And you kind of take yourself through that journey. Cause that's like my chef brain. It's like you get the waffle and chicken tasting, right?
Okay. So here's an interesting thing to think about too, because I think that would go over really well in Japan, for example, because in Japan there is like a very strong culture of tasting things, and like getting like a tasting flight of something is really kind of popular, and it's accepted here. But I don't know if it would go over as well in America, like food wise, because I do think that customers in America want to see like a big portion of something.
I agree with that. In certain circumstances, like if I were to do a menu like this, it would be more for an event, right?
Yeah.
Where like I can make a lot of it and have it kind of hang out for people to come grab. That's what I love those kinds of events where it's maybe like a gaming event and there's like a private room where people can go and eat, and it's like, here's some anime food, right? Like that kind of vibe. But if it were food truck food, my go-to would actually be from My Dress Up Darling, and it's the beef wrapped around rice, because it's easy. It's sinfully delicious. It's like actually stupid how delicious it is, right? But it's easy to eat for the most part. It's a little messy, but it's like wrapped in the paper. What I enjoy the most about it, though, is like, what if instead of plain rice, you use like the umeboshi rice? So somebody could say, oh, I want umeboshi in the rice instead. Can I get, caramelized onions in it? And you can like make it your own. So if you served it on a menu, you could pick like
customizable.
Like what filling you want. And it would just be nikomaki, like pick your filling, right? Pick your sauce kind of thing. And then that's what you got. And like, it's such an easy thing. And I think it kind of is the same vibe as like the rice bowl, where it's just, you can just get it and just literally stuff it into your face.
There's another dish that I just thought of that I think would be a really good food truck food, which is generally croquettes. I think are not very well known in America, but are amazing. But there is that show, How to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And I
or
think
is it okay to pick up girls in a dungeon? Something like that.
Yes. When I was working for Crunchyroll, I was doing some promo for them for that game. There's like a game with it, I think. And one of the food items that you can have are croquettes. And there's like cheesy croquettes, and there's chocolate croquettes, and there's like chili croquettes. And I think that could be a really, really fun thing to do. Another thing that would be easy to kind of like prep in advance and just have ready to go and like fire up. But you could do some fun stuff with that. Like, everyone loves a good cheesy croquette. For anyone who doesn't know, it's basically like cheesy mashed potatoes fried inside of a shell. Like,
it's so good.
Sinfully good.
It's like a fancy tater tot almost.
Yes, 100%. And that's one where you could like mess with the different sauces, right? Like you could have that cheesy croquette as a base and just sell that, but you could also sell it with like a chili chocolate dipping sauce, which is straight from that video game, and it's iconically good. They also have a matcha cream like croquette, which is kind of like a sweet version of it, and it's literally like matcha whipped cream.
I love that so much. This whole conversation is making me hungry. Is this what our episodes are going to devolve into? Is we're just talking about like sexy food by the end of it, and it's like, let's just go eat.
I'm so hungry.
Oh my God.
I know. And when you're here, Paul, we can go.
I'm
eat.
so excited. I'm so excited. You have no clue. Like, I'm dying to like go eat everything. It's going to be a detriment to my wallet and my stomach, but it's gonna be worth it. I love those thoughts. I think that's a good segment to kind of just let us go eat some dinner, because I'm starving.
I kind of want to. Dude. So maybe we should ease out for today, and people in the comments, please let us know like what is your sexiest anime food? I would love to know, like what just really like gets you going.
Yeah,
and what really like exciting.
What really tickles your fancy, because that's what food does. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So let us know that in the comments below. We have some sign-off stuff that we need to tell you, some important information. First of all, this is our first podcast episode. If you've made it all the way through. Yeah, thank you so much for listening, for watching. We really appreciate it. We are so excited to talk about food and otaku stuff with you in the future. So go support us on Patreon if you would like to. There's a link to that below. We have handles on everything that you could imagine: Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, whatever. We're just at FoodTaku. Is it at FoodTaku? FoodTaku podcast.
FoodTaku podcast. We'll again leave all these links in the description box below. And we have to shout out our friend Hannah Sowers, who did all of the artwork for us for this podcast. She was a total champ.
Yes,
did it
I love it.
For us out of kindness, and she worked with us so well. So we're gonna leave her information down below too if you want to reach out to her for any work of your own. And I think that's it.
Oh,
Paul,
I did want to.
words?
I did want to say, episode 0 was recorded, and so if you guys want to see that, it's going to be on Patreon. So anybody who subscribes to the Patreon is going to get access to episode 0. That was a really fun one. That was just us hashing it out and literally geeking out about food. So if you want to take a look at that, that's going to be down below. The other thing is, I did want to tease this. The next episode is going to be with Onigiri. She's joining us to talk about all things food and VTuber life. So make sure you guys are subscribed to all of us here on FoodTaku Podcast. We'd love to have you guys back.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, make sure to ding that bell, click that link.
Let's go get some food. I'm so hungry.
Let's go get some food.
I'm so hungry.
I am too,
right.
Dude. Okay. Well, have a good evening.
Bye, guys.
See you later, alligator. Bye.
Bye.